Good evening, viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Speaker's Gallery. Our guest today is the Honorable Senator for Narok County, Senator Ledama Olekina. We are going to discuss the very contentious issue of the revenue allocation, or rather the distribution of revenue between the county governments and the national governments, the national government, which has been contentious now for a long while. Everybody claims to have the mandate, the constitutional mandate to do that, and there is a tug of war, or rather there is a serious tussle between the Senate and the National Assembly. Honorable Ledama Olekina, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Who has the mandate?
You know, one of the
Who
things
has
that,
the mandate, the authority, the constitutional? Yes.
You know, the Constitution is very, very, very clear.
Yes.
Although some people say it's not clear.
Yes.
And that is the reason why we've got separation of powers between the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature.
Yes.
The legislative arm of government is the one that has got the mandate to be able to divide revenue, national revenue, between the two levels of government. And those two levels of government are very, very distinct. There is the executive, you know, or the national government, and there are county governments. And the reason why the framers of the Constitution thought it wise to set up the Senate was to be able to establish the House of Union, where it doesn't matter how many people you have in a county, there's one senator.
Yeah.
Now, people, and particularly the media, it confuses the general public on what parliament is made of. Article 93 of the Constitution of Kenya is very explicit. You know, there should be an establishment of a parliament. Article 94 defines what that parliament is. Parliament is made up of two houses, the Senate and the National Assembly.
Yes.
But you'll find that now when we go into Article 94, the National Assembly has been given the mandate to oversee national government revenue, while the Senate has been given the mandate to oversee, or rather oversight,
the
on
devolved
counties,
funds,
the devolved funds.
Yes, yes.
And I think this is where we have a separation.
Yes.
And you know, the Constitution, when you read all different sort of like articles of the Constitution, you now then be able to understand what the framers had in mind. They wanted to set up a system whereby the Senate will always protect the interest of the county government. And that interest of the county government is not only limited to overseeing the governors, but it expands to a point where even when money is being divided between the two levels of government, the Senate must also say, we've got a constitutional body which has been set up, which is a Commission of Revenue Allocation, that comes up with serious recommendation on how revenue should be shared. We've got Treasury, which comes up and say the economy has grown with this particular percentage, you know, on a year. So then the Commission of Revenue Allocation says, brilliant. If this economy has grown, let us look at the inflation rate over the last 3 years. Then they develop something called a budget policy statement. And that budget policy statement is what now sets in motion this budget formulation process.
The budget creation process itself.
Budget creation process.
Yes.
Because because you see, you cannot create a budget when you don't know how much money you have.
You have to start from somewhere.
You have to start from somewhere.
Yes.
And you know, one of my biggest pet peeves is where we as taxpayers spend so much money setting up constitutional bodies.
Yes.
We pay them salaries,
Yes.
but then when they come with recommendation, we ignore them.
We rubbish it.
We rubbish.
Yeah.
Just like when you're in parliament, what happened in most cases?
Yes.
Where you come up with reports on the environment and then they are now collecting dust.
Yes.
But I'm quite happy that all these things are unfolding when we are wiser. You know, we are wiser now than we used to be.
Yeah.
I can actually say that we're a young democracy where if we are given an opportunity to grow, we will actually be better than most Western states or Western countries.
Absolutely.
Now, when the Commission of Revenue Allocation came up with a budget policy statement, then now it leads to the issue of the division of revenue bill, because that's the second step. Ordinarily, by procedure, the National Assembly introduces the division of revenue bill. nothing stopped the Senate from also introducing the Division of Revenue Bill, looking at the budget policy statement. In the last financial year, the money which had been allocated to the county government was about 314 billion. What the executive, through its own funny ways, thought, they thought that they had the powers to determine how much goes to the to the county government.
Yes.
So mischievously, they tried to withhold 9 billion.
Some of the money.
Some of the money.
Yes.
And Article 219 of the Constitution bars.
Express.
It is expressive.
It's
it says
only the cabinet secretary who can stop it, and for a
very valid
audit
absolutely
report, which comes from the Auditor General.
Which comes from the Auditor General.
Where there's a serious, what do you call, misappropriation of funds in that particular county.
Absolutely.
And it can only affect a county, but not the whole county.
Not the whole county.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
So now, when they tried that, the Senate put his foot down and they said, no way. All the money, as the Constitution says, has got to be sent to the county government without any deductions or undue delay. So that is where the situation where we are. Now, when the Division of Revenue Bill was introduced at the National Assembly, they came up, they decided to disregard the Commission of Revenue Allocation recommendations.
Yes.
And they decided to say, we will send 3 or 5 billion to the counties. They added and said, okay, in total we will send 310 billion, including some grants.
This is statutory.
It is statutory.
It's there in law.
It is in law.
It's not for anybody to decide, any accountant or anybody who is very conversant with the law itself, who sees the growth in the economy, the inflation at that time, the amount of money that was collected, the ordinary revenue, the ordinary revenue that was collected, is able to do the computation.
I think you've put it in better terms.
Yes.
You know, you've actually demystified it.
Yes.
We've got a Commission of Revenue Allocation,
Yes.
which came up with recommendation.
Yes.
And they said,
Yes.
based on Treasury,
Yes.
based on the economic growth of the country,
Over the period.
let's look at the inflation rate over the last 3 years.
Absolutely.
Then they say, last year you gave
Factor in
counties
that one, yes.
314 billion.
Use that as
Now,
a basis.
use that as a base.
Yes.
Now, based on this inflation rate, include another 21.7 billion. What
Because,
does that
because
give
it's a growth in the
you?
economy.
It's a growth in the economy.
economy did not shrink.
Yeah, it didn't
If
shrink.
it shrinks and the collection is less,
Then we
it's
can
a
look at
different
it.
matter
It's a different
altogether.
matter.
It can be looked at. Absolutely.
So when it came to the Senate, our budget committee, which is chaired by Senator Mohamud, did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And I really, really appreciate those distinguished senators for really having looked at it and said, gentlemen,
In a very scientific
you
manner.
know, we know this is a scientific matter. We cannot just arbitrarily come up with figures.
Absolutely.
We've got to base them on something.
It's not politics.
It is not. He said 314
Yeah.
is the base,
Yeah.
21.7 is additional as per the Commission of Revenue. Now, let us get into the other factor. Let us look at devolution. Let us look at the Constitution in terms of what services are devolved and what has not been devolved.
Absolutely.
And this national government, or rather the executive, they have been in a business of trying to claw back on devolution. They introduced this thing they call MES, the Medical Equipment Scheme.
Absolutely.
So we said, gentlemen,
give it through one hand with the left hand, right hand,
and then
take
take
back
it from
yeah,
the other one. But then
without
we said,
without any that is
consideration.
No, not only that. There is no money that can be taken away from the counties without the county's due process, assembly in the county. I mean, if you want to take some money from the county, you have to then go through a process.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that process itself has got to have a legislative, what do you call, we can call it a bylaw.
Yes.
It has to have the strength of a bylaw.
Yes.
And where the county will decide we need to give back some money for ABCD because these services itself can only be best served if it is done under one pot at the national level.
When you look at Article 187 to 189 of the Constitution, that talks about cooperation between the two levels of government, that process is clearly defined.
Yes.
There's got to be some sort of an arrangement.
There has to be an arrangement. In
even that, even so,
yes,
the constitutional sort of like responsibility still remains on the level of government which that function had been devolved to. So my point is very clear. When it came to the issue of MES, the Medical Equipment Services, you know, we talk about corruption. Mheshimiwa, we talk about corruption.
Yes.
But what annoys me is that we are cherry picking. County governments never requested for the medical equipment services. The national government is the one came in. And the national government they ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah,
They ought to
yeah,
come out and
yeah,
then become clear.
Yeah.
So in our own wisdom, in the Senate, we decided we are going to remove these medical services, money which is allocated, because the whole issue is clouded, you know, in mischief.
The only way you can be part of that function which is going to be controlled from the center
Yes.
and take back money from the periphery. Ordinarily, money comes from the center and goes to the periphery.
Yes.
But here you have a situation in which it has to come back. It leaves the center, goes to the periphery, and then comes back again to the...
No, it wasn't going like that.
So it was
retained. It was retained
at the center.
At the center,
which is illegal.
You know, it was retained at the center.
Unconstitutional.
And then what happened, which is one of my biggest pet peeves,
Yes.
is that when you look at the budget allocated to the Ministry of Health,
Yes.
it is equivalent to 9 counties the size of Moranga.
Put together.
Put together. What is shareable revenue given to them?
And all that it does
You know?
is service regulatory oversight and a few services.
Exactly. And then now, when you look at this
KEMSA and others, yes.
medical equipment scheme,
Yes.
the county governments never requested for the medicals.
Yeah.
The county governments have no clue what medicals have gone there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I challenge anyone to come out with an agreement
Is there a bill? Is there an act of parliament that more or less gives strength to that? What does the government, what does the central government base its actions on?
Let me tell you, corruption, period. Nothing else.
So
because
they keep this money at the center?
They keep it.
Without any statutory or what they call constitutional underpinning?
No, what is there?
What have they used as a basis for retaining
nothing.
that? I'm sure they must.
Nothing.
They just decided this as an executive order.
You see, it's not even a matter of an executive order.
Yeah.
It is an issue which is clouded in mischief. Because if you look at the shareable revenue, the counties are supposed to do in their financial statement include that figure under CARA, under the county revenue allocation, that this amount was allocated to them in grants. Okay? But if you and I are working together, can we sit down, agree, and we look at the needs, okay, and say, what does Narok County require in terms of medical facilities? So we, in the Senate, decided to remove that money. Then the issue went back to the National Assembly, and they decided, no, we will not agree with this. So when you look at the Constitution, I think
the National Assembly enacted a piece of legislation to try and cover for this?
No,
or without?
They couldn't. How?
So what was the basis of the discussion? What was brought on the floor of the House?
Let me put
what
it
was
this
the
way.
motion, or what was
Let me put it this
yes,
the Division of Revenue Bill.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. When it came back from the
bill
Senate,
itself, yes.
as part of the bill.
Yes.
Because you see, on the Division of Revenue Bill,
yes.
it is like a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Where
Yes.
revenue is divided.
Yes.
It's saying this amount is allocated to this. It's an income statement or an expense statement.
Yes, yes.
So you're saying this amount we are allocating to county governments.
Yes.
This amount we are allocating to grants.
Yes.
This amount, it goes into details in terms of how much is given to NYS, how much is given to NSIS, how much is given to all these different government bodies. Now, we in the Senate were more attentive to details. We are looking at all the line items. How much have you given to this? How much have you given to this? Our colleagues in the National Assembly did not want us to look at that. They came in and said, if we are having a mediation, we are only discussing about the 310 billion. And then they say, mischievously, we want to add you 6 billion. Then when we ask them, what scientific method are you using? What is the best you're using? They say,
legal, constitutional, what do you call statutory basis?
Zero, nothing. It's just figures from...
Whims.
You know, really, exactly. So then we said, no. We put our foot on the ground. We had asked for 335. Then we say, because this was
and you based this on
the budget policy statement.
Systematic, mathematical computation,
absolutely,
which you can call scientific.
Which we can call scientific.
Yes.
Then we said, since you've refused to consider, the law is very clear. Yes. Which since you've refused to consider the inflation rate, the average inflation rate for the last 3 years, let us go on the core inflation rate, which is another figure. That now brought back the figure from 335 to 327 billion. When it came to 327 billion, they said no. So the mediation failed. That is the genesis of all this fight between the National Assembly and the Senate. Now, the problem we have is this. Duale, this other guy called Mbadi, decided what we are now going to do, we are not going to become logical. We are going to completely lose it. And said the Senate, they cannot even account for the money that has been sent to the governors. It now became political.
Absolutely.
I long for the time when this country we can move away from petty
Absolutely.
politics
Yes.
to looking at things based scientifically. You know? Now, the president also followed suit and started saying, I cannot give you money.
Did you go
The
to court?
money,
Did you go to court?
we went to court based on various things. The governors went to court.
Yes.
As part of the other legislation process, you see, the mediation has already failed.
Yes.
It will not be logical for us to go to court
Yeah.
on the issue of the division of revenue bill.
Yeah.
No, because there's no act. What did we do? In the Senate, we went to the High Court based on the appropriation bill.
Yeah.
Because this is a process,
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
This is a process that starts with the budget policy statement. It goes to the issue of the division of revenue bill. After that, then we can now go to appropriation, where where the National Assembly can pass the appropriation bill. Then
And
the president
then
can
it
assign.
comes back to you, then you determine the criteria
in
for
fact,
you.
even the appropriation bill doesn't even, shouldn't really come to us in a way. Because now the president
Once the
signs.
appropriation is done, the president has signed,
The
and then you have
president
allocation for the counties. You then
No.
decide yourselves the
The
criteria on which.
appropriation is based on the money that has been appropriated, that has been given to the
county.
national government.
That's agreed. Agreed.
For us, it's a CARA, is a county revenue allocation.
Yes.
So we are looking at it and we pass it.
Yes.
Then we can say, based on the Commission of Revenue Allocation, they have come up with a formula on how money should be divided, shareable. National revenue, how is it going to be shared with the county governments? So we go through that process, and then the money is released to the county governments. You know, where we know Narok County is getting X amount in terms of shareable revenue, they're getting X amount in terms of what has been appropriated in grants
Yes.
from the national government,
Yes. Yes.
and then we proceed.
Yes.
But now, you cannot have the appropriation bill.
Yes.
What are you appropriating? What have you been given? Before the two houses of the National Assembly and the Senate
Absolutely.
agree
Absolutely.
on the division of revenue.
Absolutely.
Because what are you going to be appropriating?
Nothing.
What money?
I
So
mean,
we've
because
got
you have to first of all decide on
how to share the revenue.
how to share the revenue.
Yes.
And then what's left for the central government
Yes.
is what now is appropriated to the different
Departments and the national
departments
government.
and the national government, and the defense, the education,
Absolutely.
the health of the
Absolutely.
center, and all that.
Yeah, but mischievously, and
They
I'll
went
tell you,
ahead and
I'll show you.
yeah,
Number one,
yeah. Within that appropriation itself, did
Within-
they show what was there for the counties?
no, you see, in terms of the appropriation, they cannot show what is. They will only say this is Parliament. If you take the appropriation bill, you'll be able to see Parliament, the different levels of government, and all that stuff. Because the money allocated to the county is different. We deal with it. If you actually go to, I think,
But that appropriation bill itself is going to capture what is appropriated to the counties.
to the national government, because the president signs the appropriation bill. Okay, there might be a figure there for the county governments, but most importantly, he's now dividing the money. How are you going to divide the money given to the
If
national
you cannot
government
divide
if you
it
don't
between
have
the two
it
levels?
between the two levels?
Yes,
You
that's
can't.
what I'm saying.
So the issue here is this:
Yes. They
what
passed
the
the appropriation bill.
which is illegal. You can't. What are you appropriating in the first place? So that is a stalemate. And you know, it is important for Kenyans to know that we are in a complete government shutdown.
Yeah. Can I go back to something
Yes.
that what is coming out? You put it very well. The Senate is the House of Union. It's the
Yes.
house that keeps the country together. Is basically the custodian or the protector of devolution in the country.
Absolutely. You couldn't have
Where
put it
a
anywhere
county like Lamu, which has 100,000 population,
better. Yes,
and a county like Kakamega, which has got 3 million population,
or more.
or more for that purpose, are
Equal.
equal. You have a
Yes.
senator representing Malala, and you have a senator, Oletipis, representing
Yes.
Lamu. You had seen that, and I am saying this from experience, initially, the idea in the minds of most of the people in the National Assembly, in that the select committee, the parliamentary select committee that was going to determine how the two houses are going to be related and how the two houses, the powers, the authority, that division of the legislative process between the two houses. And they were seeing this as more or less like the house of nationalities you have in South Africa.
Yes. Yes.
Although most of them ended up becoming senators again. Because
Yes.
I know Musila and
exactly.
all those people, Orengo,
Yes.
Anyang Nyongo, these were people who were basically there at that time in,
Yes.
in that committee.
Yes. In
Naivasha.
Yes.
And at that time is where actually the plot for the Senate was lost.
Completely.
Completely lost.
Completely.
I was against it myself as the Deputy Speaker at that time, but I was not part of that committee. What I thought myself, by the way, I ran for the Speaker of the Senate.
Yes, you did.
In 2013.
Yes.
And in the first round lost, I think, with 1 vote or 2 votes, something like that. Ended up actually losing a good number of my own votes from ODM. That's how I failed to make it. But my position was that there has to be a synergy, a dovetail synergy between the governors in the county governments and the Senate, for you at the earliest opportunity to push for a referendum and to push for an amendment to the Constitution, such that you claw back the powers from the National Assembly and from the executive
Yes.
for the Senate.
Absolutely.
That plot was lost because when the senators realized that they did not have any powers, they started browbeating the governors.
I see.
Seeking
Exactly.
relevance now by hammering governors all over. So then, of course, the rift was created where Senate and the governors were more or less enemies.
Yes.
Or the county governments.
Yes.
Here you are the custodians of the county governments. You are the protectors of the county governments.
Yes.
You are the agents for devolution at the center. And whatever you're supposed to protect is not in the best terms with you.
Yes.
I'm glad now the two are coming together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm very, very glad that they are coming together. Senate was supposed to become, first of all, go through a training process. The Senate has to be there in the counties, all of us sitting in the county assemblies, training those county MCAs and staff and the rest of them so that they can also begin cascading down the value and the dignity and the integrity of legislation at the Senate to those, what do you call, lower units of the MCAs and,
Yes.
and the county assemblies
Yes.
itself. Because county assemblies are more or less functioning like the old county councils
Yes.
and these kind of things. But that was
Which
not
is a
what it was
disgrace.
intended for, which is a disgrace. Are you now pushing for something like that before the next election, or it's an idea which has now been basically realized by the Senate, but in time you're going to take your time also, and you have to push for an amendment to the Constitution so that you can claw back.
Let me put it this way.
Yes.
I applaud myself as being one of the senators who have been able to bring in this conversation with the governors to be more on how do we develop our institutions.
How do you protect devolution?
Number one, today we had the governor of Siaya appearing before my committee of Public Accounts and Investment
Rasanga.
Committee. Yeah, Governor Rasanga. And when we started our process, the chair of the committee asked the auditor to give the basis of the opinion. And when the auditor gave the basis of opinion, and he concluded that the funds were not put to use lawfully, rather there was a mismanagement of funds, then the governor of Siaya said, we want to be given an opportunity by the auditors to be told whether we have utilized our funds lawfully or unlawfully. And I immediately went on a point of order and I said, let me school the governor. And I referred the governor to Article 31 of the Public Audit Act, which clearly spells out the audit process.
Yes.
And when I was sitting there, I started thinking, I said to myself, if I was to bring an amendment to the Constitution, would be to do a couple of things, which may not be, favorable to a lot of us, is that to make sure that the person who goes for the position of a governor has only one term of 7 years and he becomes an ex-official member. Or rather, he becomes non-political immediately, in a way that immediately you go there and you are elected by the people because the people need to feel represented. But immediately you take over the position
Of the governor.
yeah. You lose your political position. You become an executive. Because I realize that we are killing our institution by using politics, governors getting into office and they think they have to survive, so they have to to sort of like
Grease
sort of like
hands
oil,
everywhere, oil
yes,
people,
oil their
all that.
path,
Yes, yes.
so that they can be able to get a second
Yes,
chance.
yes.
If we have a governor who is only there for one term of 7 years,
yes.
he or she would not give a hoot in hell on what people think. They will also, they must be, we have to set the threshold higher. You must be conversant with the law on public finance management. You must know that has got to be your Bible or your Quran. You must know how do we manage funds. Because for a governor to tell me that he should be given an opportunity by auditors to be able to know how whether they have used their money lawfully, makes me realize that they did not read section 31(5) of the Public Audit Act, which give them 14 days to be able to, after the exit interview, to be able to define whether, to give more information to the auditor for mitigation. But if you cannot do that, even after 9 months of the audit process, then what business do you have becoming a governor?
Can I ask you a question, a very candid question?
Yes.
Do you trust the current president and his deputy with the devolution?
Absolutely not, I don't.
Because they never supported it.
It's not even about whether they supported it or not,
Yes.
in my view.
Yes.
And I'm very candid and I
Yes.
speak as
Yes.
the facts.
Yes.
You cannot justify allocating a lot of money to the Ministry of Health, which are services that have been devolved, and you deny counties money. That is issue number one. Number two, you cannot cherry pick on the war on corruption. If you've decided you're going to be full throttle, then you must be brutal. There's that idiom that says the law is a nurse. It wasn't intended to be fair on its administration.
Yeah.
You've got to
But until
put
it's
it out
amended or repealed, the law is the law.
there. The law is the law.
Yes.
So we've got serious issues,
Yes.
and some of them, if I raise them here,
You cannot apply it selectively.
you can't. If I raise those issues here,
Yes.
people might say I'm trying to sympathize or empathize with certain people.
Yes.
But consistency is really one of my cup. It's one of my cup of teas. Because on the issues of Ruaraka, which I'll be very honest with, I felt Kenyans were cheated because of selective application of the rule of law. So, we've got to ask ourselves, we've got two issues. We've got the issues of defending devolution. Well, we will
Senator,
defend
hold
devolution.
on to your thoughts. We'll have a short commercial break and we'll be right back.
Thanks.
Viewers, we will have a short commercial break. Viewers, welcome back to Speakers Gallery. For those who are joining us now, our guest today is Senator Ledama Olekina of Narok. Senator, I stopped you short when you were saying that the application of law itself is selective in the country. And you were not too happy with the people who were arrested. I can get the feeling that you're not too happy with the people who were arrested.
No.
Or you expected more to be arrested?
No.
basically. Yes.
Let me be very clear.
Yes.
When we sit down as legislators, and particularly in the Senate,
Yes.
I believe that we are there to be able to defend devolution and to defend this country and the unity of this country.
Because you are the House of Union.
With the House of Union.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel like certain powers can probably, once utilized in a certain way, will hinder that, or it will deter us from achieving that objective.
Yeah.
I've been very consistent in the issue of Ruaraka. That land is public land.
And you don't think the culprits are,
And
have been
I do not believe,
not-
because
not
I
been
sat
brought to
there,
book,
did serious research,
Yeah.
and I'm so happy because the court vindicated us.
Yes.
The court was very clear and said that is public land.
Yes.
We in our committee did that. It was voted against. That thing is so painful to me.
Yes.
It was voted against.
On the floor of the House?
On the floor of the House.
By the Senate?
By the Senate.
Yes. The
But-
very Senate that
but
basically you are very proud of.
Which I'm very proud of. But you
Yes.
see, on that particular day,
Yes, yes.
one
Politics,
thing
politics
what
came
I
into
can
play.
say, politics came into play.
Yes.
But I'm so proud
Yeah.
of
That-
my colleagues
Yeah.
because
Those who stood their grounds.
15, there were 19 senators
Yes.
who had the balls.
Yes.
Okay, excuse my French, who
Yes.
had the balls to stay in the House and vote.
Yes.
And out of the 19 senators,
Yes.
15 voted for it.
Yeah.
4, who I also respect,
Yeah.
voted against.
Yeah.
Okay, and ironically, the 4, the 3 out of the 4, the 3 out of the 4, 3
Yes.
of them who
Yes.
voted against
Yes.
are the ones who are now up in arms and saying Ruaraka, Ruaraka, Ruaraka. Where the hell were you when we were voting? Why didn't you really sit down and not become a voting machine and really,
What do you think?
you know,
Somebody else did not.
I think what has
did
happened,
not respect their end of the bargain or the deal.
no, I think what has happened is that now when somebody who is associated to them has been arrested because of the Kimorol Dam, they started saying, hey, go back and arrest the other people. You know, I just don't like that. You know, if you're consistent, even if it is bad. You know, there's a good movie which I know a lot of your viewers have watched, which is by Will Smith, and I think there's Will Smith.
Will Smith is a very good actor, comedian basically.
Very good actor. And there's Martin Lawrence. It is called Bad Boys for Life. You see, if you're a bad boy, be bad boy. If you stand on something which, even if it is against the norm, defend it to the latter.
And to death.
And to death.
Yes.
Stand by your words.
Yes.
You know, and the truth will always
Don't
set you
shake.
free. Don't shake. But the problem we have
You choose
is
to shake
that,
today, and tomorrow then you want to stand firm.
you know, for me, this is what I believe in.
Yeah.
If I comment on something, I do serious research on it. If I don't agree with it, I will not agree with it. Regardless of who tells me, I would rather not even invest my energy and emotions into looking at the sensibility or the legitimacy of the matter. But when I sit down, two things have disappointed me in this parliament. Two things that have, and one thing in the parliament and one thing in this, and how we administer the rule of law and justice to our people. One of them is the Ruaraka, which I'm very disappointed about it. Number two is the Solai report. That one, at least, we voted. We were very lucky that we voted, but it has never, and it has never been implemented. Just because of what? Money. Money talks.
And the poor people
people of Solai, the poor people of Solai have lost their wealth, they have lost their well-being,
their lives.
While some guy whose negligence, just because he's a tycoon, you know, and he can be able to buy people choppers, he's able to buy everybody else, goes in scot-free. It is evil, and that will eat us alive. Yes.
Tell me, you think the war on corruption is genuine?
Do I think it's genuine?
Yes.
To some degree, yes. I think it is genuine.
Yes.
But I just think it is being a little bit selective. I think also
it's not political law. It's both politics and.
It is both politics, but I'm also concerned about.
And a serious decision on the part of the president to deal with corruption.
No. I think, to be honest with you,
he means
in all fairness, the president
is sincere about this.
Is sincere about the war on corruption. Yes. But when I look at all the things happening, and I support Haji, the DPP, Nurjan Haji. But I also feel like, you know, he's maybe trying to blow his horn, his own horn. And I think he's trying to thumb chest. And I think he's also trying to do things which will end up maybe setting precedents which will be very dangerous in this country.
That might haunt him later and
haunt the country. Because one of the things which I find a little bit suspect is this trajectory that he's been pushing in terms of, which can be construed as so long as you've been suspected of a crime, then you're guilty until proven innocent.
I'm glad somebody is seeing things the way I've seen it myself for many years now.
And it's sad. Let me put it this way.
Very sad.
This time, in fact, particularly this week,
yes,
I'm one of the people who are completely devastated.
Yes.
I could not finish my submission today when I was contributing on the amendments to the Prevention of the Cancer Act.
Yes.
Because I got emotional.
Yes.
Because this country, we no longer care about our citizens. We care about lining our own pockets. If you look at the carcinogenics or agents that are causing cancer in this country,
the lead,
if
you
read everywhere, things like even plywood, you know, has got those chemicals. You know, but you know what?
Nobody's checking.
Nobody's checking. If you look at the way we've destroyed the environment, if you look at the preservative we're using to preserve food, if you look at
the meat that just the other day was
it is
the
wrong.
water, our
it
rivers,
is evil.
Our rivers.
You know, it is evil. And, you know, and I think the only time that we can really preserve this country, we will not win the war on cancer. And, let me take this opportunity to convey my condolences to the family of, you know, one,
Laboso.
You know, Laboso.
Joyce Laboso.
Joyce Laboso. I spent time with her last year, June 10th to be precise, in a fundraiser where she was raising money in aid of her sister, the deceased school, Lorna Laboso.
Yeah.
And she talked a lot about the, and I didn't know at that point that she was battling with cancer.
Yeah.
And then you also now come into the issue of Ken Okoth, a brilliant mind. I remember it was
one of the most selfless politicians who have ever straddled our own.
The day that I knew was selfless
Yes.
was December 17, 2015.
Yes.
When we were sitting together we at Kempinski on the Jeff Wenanga live show.
Yes. Yes.
And we were talking about the challenges that people go through. And I knew he was a US educated fellow. He cared so much about the people more than he cared about himself. I didn't know he was battling cancer. I didn't know he was battling cancer.
He was battling at that time cancer?
I didn't know whether he was, or maybe he was able to get it.
I think it had advanced a lot before he found out.
Before he found out. And I think the issue here is that as a country, we now need to start thinking seriously about how to control what we eat, how to exercise, so that we can be able to really separate facts from fiction. I'm one of those people who said that it is about time, and I'm not afraid of repeating it. It's about time that we should start now looking at alternative medical solutions. Medical marijuana. Why not? If it is helping other people, why should we be strict about
the
that?
Pain.
It is helped alleviate the pain because of people who are going through this. This issue of chemotherapy, I can tell you, it is just a business. It's an enterprise. It is sad, when you see people, legislators, like we lost a former broadcaster and a former senator of Migori. And by the time we're getting into parliament, the guy was about 180 pounds. But when he died through chemo, he had eaten him up. He was about 60 pounds. So really, I think we need to ask ourselves on a very serious note. Should we continue oiling this path of enterprises?
Or we'll look at alternative research. Alternative research, because I was reading in lots of places that there are certain herbal ingredients that basically are able to reverse some of these cancers and the rest of it. But our own research institutions in the country are, in my opinion, in a pathetic situation.
It is not them.
It's no longer.
No.
The
it is
days
not
when
them,
we
my
had
brother.
Yes.
I will differ with you there.
Yes.
It is the business enterprise and us, the politicians. Let us take the responsibility. Because when the DCI has been able to confiscate fertilizer, which is saying it is not good for this economy, we politicians are out there beating, going to court and doing their cashier way of saying, no, the DCI is holding this thing, we go to KEBS. When KEBS, they try to do their job, we, the politicians, stop them. Okay? So it's shame on us.
And the real importance of the sugar, which is
semi-processed,
which was laced itself, was big guys who, you remember about all these things found in godowns in Nakuru. And
not even Nakuru, my friend.
Yes.
I can tell you somebody, one of your former nemesis, maybe your friend, who will not mention the name.
Yes.
One of the companies that he was associated with, there was a lot of illegal sugar out there. Let us be factual here. And I hope the president.
Yes.
And I was saying, I heard that the president is going to Jamaica from next week.
Yes.
I think one of the things he should look in terms of bilateral is to see whether medical marijuana is used there to help alleviate pain in cancer people.
I don't know. Frankly, I have my doubts about that because of the effect that this marijuana has had on our youth itself.
We can control it.
Which is so devastating.
We can control it.
It can only be limited to and at a very high level in a very limited number of outlets where they can be used as painkillers. I'm told it's a very good painkiller for some of these pains which are so excruciating.
This is a conversation, my brother, that we cannot stay away from. I
don't have an opinion on it right now, but I think your conversation must be there.
We must have that conversation.
Must be there. Yes.
Because anyway.
Tell me, before we come to the end of this show, where are we headed? We're going to have a presidential election to come to.
We're heading to hell. Where are we heading? I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know.
Yes.
Because do we need a referendum in this country? I strongly believe so. I believe that we should have a referendum.
Do we change
to
the
be
system of
able
government to have a, what they call a parliamentary instead of a presidential?
No, in my view, no. I think what we
So
need to
what
do...
will be the referendum for?
The referendum, one, will be to do two things, in my view.
Yeah, to increase
One,
maybe the allocation for the county governments?
Of course, that one is
Yes,
a no-brainer.
Yes.
But I think one is that we need to distinguish between what are referred to other countries
Yes.
as the deputies, the National Assembly
Yes.
and the Senate. We need to make the Senate the upper house.
Yes.
We need to give Senate the
The
original
proper
jurisdictions,
powers as the upper house, yes.
on legislation.
Yes.
You know,
And
powers
impeachment,
to
impeachment
impeach,
also.
power to veto,
Yes.
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The Senate must always be the
The
house
lower
that,
house, the lower house sends the the attorneys or the basically what you call them, the lawyers.
Yes.
Who are going to prosecute the president in the Senate, but
Yes.
the Senate has the final authority on whether the president should be impeached or not.
That's number one. Number
Yes.
two, also, we
Yes.
need to also maybe one of the things that I
doesn't have
don't...
to be 2/3 majority. It can be a simple majority.
No, I think 2/3 is better
Yeah.
because the president represents the entire
Is
country.
is that yes?
So it needs to be a full representation of the whole country.
Yes.
And I think the other thing, in my view, that we need to amend the constitution on is to clearly define. I don't really support the winner-take-all. When you look at other jurisdictions, and comparative politics is something which is very good for all of us, is that if you look at Northern Ireland, even the way they elect their councillors, the way they do it, is normally on the first preference. We can amend the Elections Act to develop new systems on how you...
Proportional representation.
Either proportional or first preference. First preference is a system that works in a way that when you're going to the election, there are 4 candidates.
Yes.
Then you give 1,
yes.
2, 3.
Different marks. And then those things are competed together.
There's a quota.
Yes.
That if you, let's say for instance, if it is 10,000 people, there's a quota. And the quota might be 2,000.
Yeah.
In the first preference, if you have 2,000, you are the person elected immediately.
Yes.
But if you don't make the first quota, then they go through an elimination process, the last one.
Yes.
Those votes are divided into all these other people.
More
that one becomes more inclusive in a way.
Yeah.
And then I'm not convinced, and I completely will not support
Well, you can
regional representation.
Yes.
I don't want the third level of government.
Yeah.
We cannot uncreate what we've already created.
Yes.
The 47 counties will remain.
Yes.
But let
with
us come up
assemblies
with their county assemblies
to determine also their own what they call domestic issues there in terms of revenue and all that.
But let us come up with laws. Let us amend the PFM Act, overhaul it completely. Let us encourage...
Have a more powerful accountability tools to make sure that the governors and the governments do the right thing.
Yes. And
because everything is post-audit. You see the two very important committees in there.
Yes.
The PAC and the PIC.
Yes.
The Public Accounts Committee and the Public Investments Committee.
We're morticians.
Yeah, morticians basically.
Yes.
It's a post-audit thing.
Yes.
And that audit might take 4 or 5 years or 3 years sometimes.
Absolutely.
So
but I can tell you...
By the time you are talking about the wrongs that were done, these guys are not even in office.
But can I tell you something?
Yes.
And this is why Kenyans ought to be proud of the Senate.
Yes.
In the committee that I sit chaired by the distinguished senator from Homa Bay, Kajwang, we are current.
Yes.
Okay? We
on
are
the Public Accounts Committee.
We are current.
And
we are current.
How are you? How have you been able to? Because yours is basically a post-audit committee.
It's a post-audit.
So the Auditor General, is the Auditor General also, have you pushed him?
Oh, yes.
He's current now.
He's current. But you see the problem. This is where the problem is.
Yes.
And this is why the executive
has not been doing very well with
away.
the central government because the government didn't.
Exactly.
The center was not too happy with him.
They're not too happy.
Yeah.
So go back and look at.
I was shocked when I saw the president reprimand.
But I'm glad that the issue was over.
Yeah.
What is the problem
on the issue
now?
of the Eurobond?
The Eurobond, yeah. That issue was done well. It was done away with. The problem we have right now.
If he has to go to New York to go and find out if this money was properly used, then what's wrong with that?
Well,
are you getting my point? And in any case, because the president gives instructions up there, he doesn't have to take responsibility for this money and say, no, this money was... Yes.
Ask yourself one question. Isn't there an auditor, an investigator?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what stopped him from going there? Anyway, that's a discussion which is over.
Yes.
Right now, the question we have to ask ourselves is this.
Yeah.
How do we add value to the services that we render to the people? If you look at the pending bills, I believe the Commission of Revenue Allocation can really come up with serious recommendations on how to help county governments determine how much they need.
Yeah.
The problem we have right now in Kenya is that you have a county that is given a shareable revenue of 6 billion. They collect 100 million, but they come up with a budget of 10 billion. Where will they fund it? And they continue expending out. Of course.
And you continue having pending bills.
Pending
you continue
bills.
having pending bills.
Absolutely.
Which is a problem.
It's a big
problem.
Yes.
Now, with all his imperfections, we have already said, and we're in agreement, that the president looks serious to a certain extent on the war on corruption. We lose not less than a third of our ordinary revenue to corruption in the country. People talk of about 400 billion, 600 billion in some cases, which are very wide, 600 billion, between 400 and 600 billion. We have now cases, very many cases, of people like Rotich and Duge and the rest of them, folks that we've all had a lot of regard and respect for. Are you sure they are not being sacrificed as a political tool and that they seriously have a problem? And maybe that Kimorer and Aror dams, that money was a slush funds which was used for the last election or the preceding elections.
Let's put it this way.
Yes.
When something
because
wrong,
Goldenberg essentially was created in the State House. But at the end of it, President Moi was not taken to court for it.
Let's put it this way. You
the
know,
poor guys, Koinange, Elefas Riungu, many of them are dead right now in Bindio. Many of them stayed in court for God knows how many years, almost 2 decades.
Let me put it this way.
Yes.
This is a matter which we have to be very careful because of the sub judice.
It's in court.
It is in court.
Yes.
But let me put it this way.
Yeah.
If money has been lost, the DPP has carried out his investigation.
Yeah.
He's followed the money trail.
Yeah.
And you know, in this country, what Kenyans ought to know is that there is a paper trail where you follow the money where it goes and all that stuff. If that evidence is there, let it be presented to court. As a person, I still have a lot of regards for the former Cabinet Secretary of Treasury. But I believe he's still innocent until he's proven guilty. I think the war on corruption will finally be won when we, all of us in this country, including you and myself, accept that we are rotten corrupt and take the responsibility to make things right. Because we are all corrupt.
Finally, members of parliament are asking for more money.
I knew you would bring that up. And I'm glad you've asked that question because you were once a member of parliament.
Yes.
How much did you used to take home?
When I first came into parliament, 39,000.
Very good. Was that
1993?
Did that support you?
No.
Who was your employer?
Every
No, answer my question. Who was your employer?
The people.
But then, who is written as your employer when you're in parliament? Who is supposed to take care of your needs and negotiate everything?
The National Assembly.
The Parliamentary Service Commission.
We didn't have a Parliamentary Service Commission.
Now that
it came in much later.
It came in much later.
Yes.
We have a Parliamentary Service Commission.
Yes.
To be fair, as a senator of Narok County, I wish I was given the opportunity to negotiate my salary.
Yeah.
Because maybe most of it I will give it to the public for them to be able to use if I'm able to reach out to them. But now there is a Parliamentary Service Commission which has been tasked with the mandate to negotiate the salary.
Actually, the Parliamentary Service Commission is employer for the employees.
For the employee. No, it's for us.
The members of parliament.
No. We are elected by the people.
Yeah.
But even my ID, which I'm happy to show you, it is very clear. If I can get it, and I'm sure I will be able to get it. Okay?
It says the National Assembly.
Wait.
It says the Senate.
No, it doesn't say Senate.
What does it say? Parliamentary Service
Commission. It's very funny. I can't find it now when I need it. Okay? What does it say? Look at it. Who has employed me?
I didn't have this. It says Parliamentary Service Commission.
Who pays for my medical cover?
The Parliamentary Service Commission.
It is right here. This is my medical cover.
Yes.
It is paid by the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Yes.
So I want the Parliamentary Service Commission to go and fight
your employer
for me.
Your employer.
To if they come up and tell me, Senator Olekina, from next month you are taking home 20,000 shillings. I'll say Asante. Let them come. Let them go and discuss. But one thing which we must demystify, and I was actually shocked that the president would say, if the MPs want to send more money to counties, let them take a cut in their salary. You know very well that when money
There's no correlation between the two.
When money is appropriated, the national parliament, which is made up of the Senate and the National Assembly, has only about 2% of their budget. Judiciary is 0.6%. The rest is, then the national government has whatever percentage.
Parliament is 2%.
2%. So we are only playing with the 2% money.
What's the staff? What's the staff in Parliament roughly? 1,000?
More than 1,000 probably.
Like what? 1,200?
I mean, take a good example. How many senators do we have? 68?
Yeah.
67?
Yeah.
67 plus ex-official.
Yeah, 349.
And then we have 349.
Yeah.
And then now the support
It's
staff.
400 and something.
Okay?
Yeah.
So let's say we are about 1,200.
1,200
Okay?
members of Parliament.
Now then
Yeah.
look at
The staff,
all
all
the
of you.
legislative work.
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
All the work that needs to be.
1,200.
Yes.
1,200. Judiciary has 7,000 employees.
Yes.
The budget for the judiciary is a third of the budget for Parliament.
But the work which is done by the judiciary and the work which is done by the Parliament is very different.
Can I just finish?
Yes.
Parliament is within that parliamentary square, which is what? 1 square kilometer or 2 square kilometers at the most.
No, it is not.
Judiciary.
It is not.
Judiciary
No,
is.
no, no.
Hang on a minute.
That is wrong because I'm from Narok and I'm in Parliament.
I know. You got to Narok and
So you've got to represent the whole country.
The Judicial Service Commission, or that's judiciary itself, has got 7,000 members in the 4 corners of the country.
Different job cadres.
Administering justice every day.
Different job cadres. And let me tell you, if we are smart enough, the judiciary can raise its own money. If we are smart enough. Because in other countries,
Finally.
the judiciary raises their own money.
Finally, in most of the other jurisdictions, Westminster type, any jurisdiction, the American type, members of parliament or members of the legislature are allowed to vary their own allowances and remunerations upwards and basically come up with a bill but then it only takes effect from the next parliament, like the Westminster system itself. It does not take effect from that member of parliament. Now, the member of parliament who is going to vote for that increase is going to get so sober because he doesn't know he's going to be in parliament to come the next election. His nemesis, his opponent, might be the one who is going to be in the house. So he's going to be very objective about it. But if we have a situation in which you ask a member of parliament, how much is enough for you? He will tell you everything is enough.
Can I answer that question?
Yes.
Right now in Kenya,
Yes.
the only institution
Yes.
that you can say it costs X amount of money to manage one person is Parliament. SRC, not SRC, but the Commission of Revenue Allocation and SRC, can tell you with X amount of money, we can maintain Senator Olekina for 5 years. That computation has already been done. Number 2, comparative politics and comparative jurisdiction is very, very good in looking at how things are done in different countries. I have no problem with that. But I can tell you, we have the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is tasked with that mandate, not me. It is not fair for you to say, okay, do this thing. On the other one, when you go to Westminster, for me to make my point, that system is still there where they can be able to.
The Parliamentary Service Committee has got the Speaker as a chair of it.
The Speaker of the National Assembly.
As Speaker of the National Assembly as a chair of it.
And then
the clerk of the Senate as a secretary to that.
But guess what is happening
so
now?
basically,
guess what is happening now?
Yes.
The guys of the National Assemblies are becoming greedy.
Yes.
They have sponsored a parliamentary service bill where they want to take the powers away from the Senate, which is ridiculous.
Including the secretary.
The secretary. They want to do it away.
Corruption.
Corruption.
Yes.
And they're hiding that bill. And we are waiting for it.
That's mainly because they want to have a grip on the money that basically gets.
Yes.
I have heard that.
Yes.
I've heard that, yes.
So let us be factual.
Yes.
Okay? Kenyans, you will not progress because you have corrupt leaders, all of us.
If we had an independent body like the SRC, or we had an independent body like the CR, whatever, the Commission for the Revenue Allocation, CRA, then we could say, yes, Parliament, you are a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission, and this Service Commission is so independent that the decisions it comes up with are
so long
fair.
as here
you have people who are going to be direct beneficiaries of whatever they pass.
No.
There's a conflict of interest.
No, it's not.
No, let me just finish.
Let's be honest. It is made up of even certain people who are in the civil service.
I know there are
people
who a number of people come from outside.
Yeah.
In most cases, an ex-member of parliament or something like that.
Yeah.
But the reality of the matter is that the chair, the secretary, the other members, including the vice chair, are members of parliament.
It's all about the Benjamin.
Benjamin.
Let's end it there.
please address Kenyans for 1 minute or 2 minutes, looking at this camera, and
I
tell
will-
them what your real feelings are about this country and for the future.
Today, I don't believe that I have the energy
Because of the
to be able to talk about politics,
Yes.
or maybe how we can be able to be civil in this country.
Yeah.
Today, I want to talk about cancer. Cancer is something which is going to eat us all. It is very painful, very emotional. It is sad because the health care that I have, myself as a member of parliament, is not what most Kenyans have. Maybe I might be able to afford to go through that expensive killing process of chemotherapy that most of our colleagues have gone through. But most Kenyans who are poor do not have that luxury. I want to appeal to Kenyans to change their way of life. I want to encourage my brothers and sisters out there to change the way they live their life, what they eat. Let us go back to the days when we used to drink uji, we used to drink milk,
Wimby.
wimbi. It is sad that
Duma,
most
sweet
farmers
potatoes,
who
yeah.
are now producing milk are using preservatives which are used to preserve dead bodies so that they can be able to sell. Let us do away with that. Let us go back to a point where we care about our brothers and our sisters. In terms of what we eat, let us build. And I would encourage government entities to try and promote good standards. Promote the DCI, support the DCI in terms of investigation and standards of substandards products which are coming. One of my biggest problems when I want to alert Kenyans out there is that some of these chemicals that we use to preserve maize, where you pour them on the maize for 3 months, you put them in the storage, and then after 3 months you come back, you've not consumed all the maize, you add more, is what is bringing cancer. Some of these things, these are all carcinogenics that we have to be very careful. Let us live a simple life and try to go back into the herbals, the medicine that we used to take. In Masai, seketek, and we will take seketek, and then you'll feel good when you're not feeling well. Let us go back to that point, because we also must preserve our environment. The more we cut our trees, the more we destroy our environment, the more we pollute our environment. And through pollution, we pick up all these cancer things. And finally, to the president of this country, we're in a position where we have a stalemate between the National Assembly, your office, and the Senate. Let wisdom prevail. Let us allow and promote separation of powers because of a proper check and balance system. If one arm of government tries to twist the other, it is wrong. And to the Chief Justice, please be independent and stand for what is right. And I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. I appreciate having
Thank you
me
very
as
much.
a guest. You
I
are
appreciate it.
certainly very, very great guest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I can go
Viewers.
eat.